Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to continue. I was leaving off with Lori, and I was talking about passive voice and dangling modifiers. For me, one of the most challenging, excuse me, one of the most challenging things I have in my writing is tense, past and present tense, using it in the same paragraph. I often have to stop and read it and then consider how to change it because I include the past and present tense in there often, so I still have to work on that. Clinton talked about the importance of social media and understanding that how we show ourselves on social media, how we interact, can impact our organization. It could impact our employment. So we need to be careful of those things. Mindful, not careful, mindful. Cody. Cody talked about persuasive and negative messages, and he talked about how that information helped him because he works in a customer service industry, and he said that oftentimes he has to apologize for his organization. But reading those chapters gave him some valuable information in understanding when it is appropriate to apologize, because sometimes apologies lead the recipient to believe that the organization is at fault, where that might not necessarily be the case. Are you apologizing because we are at fault, or are you apologizing because the customer has had this experience? So very, very important. And on that, I'll talk about negative news messages. I think that we all can be mindful of that in terms of when you have negative news, focus on what a person can do. So here's an example. Smoking is allowed in the back corridor on the left. Very clear. Where can you smoke? In the back corridor on the left. By saying you can't smoke in the front, you can't smoke in the halls, you can't smoke in the bathroom, you can't smoke on the side. You can only smoke in the back corridor on the left. But if I tell you where you can smoke, what you can do, without listing all the places you cannot smoke, it keeps the focus positive. Pyle talked about analyzing audience. This is really important. Oftentimes when we are giving a speech, we may be focusing on what we know and trying to deliver the information on what I know. But what I need to focus on is what the audience already knows or does not know. And my job is to fill in the gaps when it comes to that. Gregorio, you mentioned tone. We have to be mindful of our tone in the email. This is my rule of thumb. If, as I am writing, there is a concern of the tone and how the tone may be perceived, for me, that is an indicator that I need to pick up the phone or get out the office and go visit that person. Because if tone can be an issue, probably 50-50, 60-40, that information shouldn't be sent in the email just because you don't need to take that risk. Pick up the phone. Michael A. Talked about, which is true, it's a double-edged sword in terms of technology. Yes, it's great, but then yes, it's not great. It can be great because it allows things to be done quicker, with ease, maybe more often, but it's always a give and take. Perhaps we have lost some of our sensitivity or our ability to connect with people. So I agree, Michael A. It's a double-edged sword. Sterling talked about, maybe not always using it, but having the different technologies to enhance and increase our learning, like podcasts. Organizations are using podcasts, and those are things that you can use on your time to increase your learning. Joshua talked about with texting, because he was typically used to texting family and friends, he has to make sure that he turns on and off that switch of, because now texting is using in the workplace, but it's not your family or friends. Had a situation where recently here in Atlanta, via email, an organization sent our company saying there was some type of potential bank robbery in the area. And if you didn't need to be in the area, stay put, because they're looking for some people. And one of the coworkers said, "Oh my gosh, let me check and find out where Brian, her fiance, is. In case he's over there getting some money, I'm going to drive over and tell him to throw the bags in the car." Sure, we all knew that was funny and she was joking, but it probably was not a good idea to send that email response on the company email, just because. Just thinking about that, I was like, probably not a good idea. Andrea is practicing revising messages. And Andrea, I will tell you, the more you practice, the better you'll be. I still do it. I still practice my messages. Deborah, you talked about people's moods and tones and how that impacts it. And again, I will say, if there is a issue or a concern of a mood or a tone, I would say pick up the phone or go visit if possible. Natalie talked about, she works for a small company, so this class in and of itself, a lot of the things she doesn't use maybe on a normality, but I would say two things, Natalie. One is that see if there are opportunities for you to introduce the things that we're using. So here's an example, the memo. Now, it might be a small company, but you could still send a memo even though she's right in the next chair, just to use what you have learned and show your company perhaps how they can grow or use updated tools. Just an idea. And the other one is, maybe you won't be at that company forever. So it is good to continue to learn these things. So good for you. Rosanna, I like it. She talked about her previous way of maybe jumping the gun or reacting. And so one of the techniques that she is using now in dealing with people that may be rude, she says to calm herself down, she stops and she counts to 10. And I do that. But part of my rebel, when I do that, and make an outward sigh, so the person knows. That's my passive aggressive way to let the person know that you're on my nerves, but I'm calming myself down. Marlena talked about grammar mistakes and revising messages. Very important. Alexander, you brought up something that we don't think of often, which is body language. It is important, our body language, even though we may not believe or intentionally. So here's an example. I will often do this with my arms. I used to do that because I was always cold, and then it just became a habit. But studies say that this says that I'm a closed-off person or unapproachable. It's really not the case. But I have to be mindful of how this body language can be perceived. Michael T. So, Michael, I want you to email me and tell me what this is, because I don't know what this is. Bleeding through the web. Michael T was talking about applying to a particular government contractor. I think he said it was, I can't remember, and I see it in my head, but a government contractor. He had been applying, and all the government contractor competitors were giving him a call, but this particular one was not. And he mentioned having a conversation with the recruiter, but he said he was you said that you were bleeding through the web. So I'm not really sure what that is, but overall, he also was talking about netiquette in terms of, for example, he gave one where typing in all caps means that you are yelling. For me, I'm big on net etiquette or even email etiquette. For example, this is one that really annoys me. The LOL. You ever have people that put LOL after everything? Well, it's not appropriate. LOL means laugh out loud. You don't laugh out loud for everything. That's just one. But I am big on net etiquette. And here's another one. Danielle talked about reading up, where if you are forwarding an email, delete the forwards if it's been forwarded a bunch of times to you and you have to forward it. 2 instances. If you could just recap the information and leave the one forward original for a reference, that's one way. If you are forwarding the information and you are not adding anything, delete all the previous forwards and send the original and forward that. So 2 things, 2 practices that are appropriate in the business setting. If you are forwarding an email and you have some additional information, then you can recap what the original email said and add your information and keep the one original for reference. If you are just forwarding and you do not need to add any, please delete all the other forwards that are irrelevant and just send it that way. And then Elizabeth talked about learning the different appropriate ways to send emails with the persuasive messaging, because she is requesting help through organizations for internship opportunities. So it is really important to be able to hone in on that persuasive way to get what you want. And that can be used with all of you within any industry, using a persuasive message to get what you want, whether that is extra time off, the ability to try a new training program, any of those things. I think that was everybody. I am going to Jamaica on Saturday. I'm very excited. I'm going to spend a week there. I will have internet. However, don't expect too much because I'm going to be in Jamaica. You guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Please, you have until tomorrow at midnight to complete the midterm. If you have not completed it, please complete it. And my apologies for the delay. I will ensure that the final is up at an appropriate time, and when I get back from Jamaica, I will post a study guide